Okay, welcome everyone. And this is my first session for DX Live. And I'm hoping that everyone's going to enjoy what we do today. So the idea is to work to do a drawing, finish a drawing, and then work some very expressive marks in tea and actually a little bit of alcohol. You can use IP alcohol. You don't actually have to use gin or any other form of alcohol. But if you've got your favorite drink with you, that's absolutely perfect. And in fact, I heard about this technique first from Griffith, and he discovered it when he was painting, and he had, I think it was a glass of whiskey, and he accidentally took his paintbrush and he dipped it into his whiskey instead of his art water, and he realized that it had quite an amazing effect on his artwork. Okay, so I'm just going to show you. I'm going to flip through the slides. Okay, now I've just misplaced my mouse. I just moved it off. So I'm going to flip through the slides, and okay, let me just click on it. And this is Griffith. So my image is doing weird things. Okay, I'm going to stay still so it doesn't do weird things. So what he does is he draws in pencil first, and then what he does is okay, I'm going to sit still so it's not doing weird things. He works in pencil, and then what he does is he works the tea into his artwork. In fact, now I'm telling lies. What he does is he puts ink down, and it's water-based ink, and then he puts tea into it, and it dilutes the water-based ink. So what he uses is he uses fountain pen ink, and then that is water-soluble, and it sort of seeps into the tea. But it makes quite a strong mark. So I thought that we'd start a little bit more gentle with this technique, and we'd slowly introduce a little bit of perhaps ink into it, or paint. What else? Yeah, watercolor paint. So if you've got those materials, that would be fantastic. Yeah, and then we'll start working into it with colored pencil, just so it gives us a little bit more of a gentle effect. I'm going to change slides. Okay, and then these are artists that I found on Pinterest, and they work in colored pencil. And I mean, this red, I mean, it's quite amazing that you can get such incredible values just with a red pencil. I've got a student who fell in love. I mean, I do teach in a high school, and I had a student who fell in love with red and blue, and she worked exclusively in those two colors, and she made quite incredible artwork. Here again is, I don't know who these artists are, but also just working with that red colored pencil. And it almost makes sense, you know, to almost restrict yourself to one color and get your techniques right before you start working with other colors. I am traditionally a printmaker. So I studied printmaking at university, and I worked mainly in monochromatic colors. And so I'm working with colors not natural to me, and I find it very difficult when I have to choose colors. I think I've got a little bit better as I've got older, but working monochromatically almost feels easier for me, and it feels more manageable. Just going to change that again. Beautiful, beautiful work with just one red pencil. So it can do incredible things. Michael Carson is a painter, and I just found these works absolutely fascinating. So again, using red pigment, and I quite like that his flesh color almost looks like tea, so it relates to our session today. And then, of course, we've got, now I'm going blank with names. Okay, it's it's the gray hair setting in. Can't remember this artist. Ali Kavanagh. Okay, it came to me all of a sudden. Okay, Ali Kavanagh, and she does these beautiful, beautiful watercolor works. And I think that she does use a little bit of colored pencil, but it's very, very subtle. So really beautiful work there. And then this is one of my pieces. So this was based on Griffith's work. And I did the Queen Elizabeth. And I used his technique quite faithfully. So what I did is I did the pencil drawing, then I applied the ink with a fountain pen, and then I took the tea and washed the tea into it, and then I drew into it again. You'll see that the background is watercolor, and I think what happened there is I really messed up that background. So I had to cover what I had done, and I ended up putting that strong ink in sort of quite a watercolor effect into the background. I'm going to change to my next slide. So we shouldn't have anything weird happening. I'm not quite sure what I've done with the slides, but this is where we are going today. Okay, so you should have your pencils out. You should have a putty rubber, and I can't see where mine is. I obviously need to get more organized. I think I've got one in my drawer. I've got a drawer that's attached to my desk. Okay, I'm going to close that. And if you just forgive me for 2 seconds, I'll just see if I can grab the putty rubber. Okay, I've got it here. I've got it here. So I've got the putty rubber, and I've got my pencils and some brushes. Okay, so let me move all this. So you'll need your pencils, you'll need your putty rubber or eraser. You are going to need some mixing bowls if you want to add pigment. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to demonstrate the rooibos tea, so the red bush tea. This tea is actually traditionally South African. People actually feed it to babies. It's supposed to be very good for your stomach, and it's so popular in our country that you can even order a rooibos cappuccino. Which sounds very strange. So it's made with lots of milk, and it's got this strong, it's quite herbal. A lot of people drink it like black tea, but I like a little bit of honey and a little bit of milk. I can't drink it without that, but I actually prefer it to normal tea. My mom's British, and I mean, she was quite horrified that I prefer rooibos to the traditional English tea. So I'm going to paint with the rooibos and show you what it looks like. And then I've got a little bit of red acrylic so that you can, if you haven't got any ink, you can mix the acrylic into the rooibos and just enhance the color. I've got this lovely fountain pen ink that's called Ancient Copper, but it's actually a beautiful red. You'll see it when I use it. You will need some type of blowing instrument. So it will have to be either one of these that is used to blow. I think they used to use it to blow dust off photographs when people were developing photographs back in the day. But you can use a straw or a hairdryer is also fine. In fact, you could probably lift up your work and just blow it with your mouth as well, and it should have some effect. Just to show you what the rooibos looks like, I've got this little sachet, and you can see the tea. This particular sachet is from a wine farm. It's called Babylon Storen, and it's a beautiful wine farm in the Cape of our country. And then I've got this lovely tin, and this is an organic rooibos tea tin. This is one of my favorite things to do, is to actually collect tins. I'm obsessed by tins. But anyway, so I've got that tin, and I'm going to put it aside. And I think we are going to, you will need some brushes. And I've got my IP alcohol in one of these needle-nosed bottles. And this is really beautiful because you can actually direct it into a particular spot. But you could also drip it off a paintbrush. It's the needle nose brush as well. And I think that is all in terms of equipment. I've got a little bit of watercolor. I've recently discovered these watercolors. And these are absolutely beautiful. They are a Japanese brand, curator, and they are quite strong in pigments. So if you're into watercolor, it might actually be something to buy at some stage. I think this was relatively inexpensive. So they're not too expensive and really, really rich in pigment. So what I'll do is I'll activate those. In fact, what I'm going to do is I'm going to activate them now. So if you are a watercolorist, what they normally do is, or if you are not, is you just spray the palettes before you start working, and it should moisten that paint, and then the paint becomes a lot more creamy and a lot more intense. So I've just done that with my little spray bottle. Okay, but let's get going with the drawing. Okay, I did a few experiments, okay, just before with the watercolor and rooibos. I think these all had some type of pigment mixed into them. And you can see they really, really are quite beautiful. They make the most incredible stains. I'll just show you very, very quickly. So this was just very rough working. And what I did is, with this one, I did a little scribble, and then I poured the rooibos on. We're going to be a little bit more subtle. This was rooibos again, okay? And I'm going to show you how to apply it in a more subtle way. And then this was the normal tea. And we have our normal English tea is called 5 Roses. And then at the bottom, I added some red ink into the rooibos tea. Okay, I'm going to move that aside. So in the end, we are looking for something that is going to look something like this artwork. So that is the aim. This one's incomplete. I still have to draw into their hair, but this is where we are going. But in reds, we're going to stick to that monochromatic color scheme. Here's another one that's been done in blue inks. Okay, but so that is the end result. By the end of today, we should get to something like this. So draw in the face, draw in the flowers in pencil, and then work the tea. And perhaps, so what I've done is, because this was quite pale when I painted it on, I then reapplied the tea that had the ink or the paint mixed into it. And it's given that more intense around the face. But I wanted the face to be relatively pale. So then when I start working over it in the colored pencils, the colored red pencils, that this face doesn't completely disappear, and it stays quite pale, and it's got some lovely highlights in it. Okay, so this is more or less where I'm aiming to get to by the end of this session. Okay, so I'm going to put that aside. In fact, I'll put it at this. Yeah, I'm going to put it aside. Okay, so to start drawing, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to move my phone so that I can actually see what I'm doing. And I'm going to switch it on. And I don't think there are going to be any reflections. So just let me know if there are reflections. And I'm just going to open that image very quickly. You are getting a bit of a red. My phone isn't red, but that's fine. We'll still see the image. Okay, sorry about this. I did have it on. And then when I shut it, oops, sorry, wrong thing. And when I shut it down, so let's go to the reference images. Okay, and there she is. Okay, and you can choose to do this face, or I've given you the reference images for another face. So there's either this one or this one. This one's more central, and this other one is slightly to the side. Okay, so Sharon, I'm not sure if you are familiar with structuring a face, or should I go through on the basic structure of a face? Are you managing to unmute yourself? Let me just see, maybe it's on my side. Let me just see if I can unmute you. Okay, ask to unmute. There we are.
There we go. I couldn't unmute earlier.
Yeah, sorry.
I am kind of familiar, so yeah, we can go with that.
Okay, okay. I'm just going to mute you again. There, I've done that, and we can get drawing. Okay, so pencils. So I generally start with, I'm going to start with maybe a fairly, and it depends on how hard you draw. I've got quite a light hand, so I've gone for a 3B. Some people start drawing with an HB or something that's lighter than a 3B. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a face. Remember, we've got to leave space for the flowers, but I'm going to make her fairly big. And I'm just going to start with that oval of the head. And in the middle, you're going to have your eyes. So I normally put a line in. Some people use the Loomis, I think it's called the Loomis method for drawing faces. I always tend to teach like this. And I think it is because I teach in a high school. And this, when I start getting students drawing, this is probably the easiest method. So I'm going to very roughly put in those eyes. And if you had to take your pencil and place it over the reference image, you would see that the eyes are probably one eye apart. Okay, that will be rubbed out. So you should actually be able to fit one eye in between the other two eyes. I know that they said that you could fit 5 eyes across, but I generally don't. Obviously, with her face, there's more space on the eye that is on the left-hand side of the image. Okay, so we will extend that part of the face out. The nose is then going to go into halfway down. I'm just going to remove my glasses because my close vision is quite good. And my glasses, I've actually just gone to the optician and had my eyes retested. And the optician actually said to me that my eyes have improved, which is quite strange. And she said that recently, so what I've done here is I've drawn 3 little circles for the nose, a big circle for the large fleshy round part of the middle of your nose, and then I've indicated 2 little circles on the side for the nostrils. Okay, so all I'm doing is I'm trying to work out where the features are going to go. I've got a feeling I've made these eyes a little bit too big, so I might actually adjust them down. Okay, but right now I'm actually just trying to get those features in. Okay, and the lips. The lips I sort of see as almost like 2 hills and a valley. So if you were drawing landscape. And then the middle lip is another lower hill, a valley, and another hill. And then the bottom lip, for me, when I speak to my students about the facial features, is almost like this just deep valley. Okay, so the features are coming in. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to sort of look at the shadow shapes and the distance, and I can already see that I need to perhaps move those nostrils down. Okay. And I'm shifting that down. And just popping that eye in. So just putting a little bit more detail in. And what I will do as well is all of this will be erased. I normally have 2 or 3 goes at a drawing until I decide to eventually go with it. So my initial oval or that egg shape for the face is actually incorrect. So now what I'm doing is once I pop the features in, I adjust the side of the face to suit the features. So I always work like that. I generally start with the eyes, get the nose, mouth in, start shaping that face. So the side of this face, remember, there's a lot more space on this side, so it's going to come right out. And then her shoulder lines up with her nose, so you can get that shoulder in. I'm not worrying too much. I mean, I know that that this artwork, I might actually cover it with flowers. I should have moved this more to the side, but I'm not worried about it. Because the splashing is going to cover a lot of stuff. And so you can see in this original piece, you can't actually see where the shoulder is. So I'm not really worried about where the face is. And this face was more upright than the one I'm drawing now. Yeah, I'm not really too concerned about realism. I mean, as long as it looks like a face, and if it doesn't look exactly like the person, that's okay. If I really wanted to do a super realistic face, I would probably grid this. And so if I do commissions, I generally grid the artwork and make sure that it's accurate, because people want images to actually look like them. But if it's an artwork that I'm doing for my own pleasure, like this piece, I'm not going to worry about accuracy. So the ear, in this case, the lobe of that ear is above the nostril. So that will start. And I'm just going to indicate her hair. Okay, very loosely. And just indicate that shoulder. Okay, so at this point, I normally take a putty eraser and I roll it into a nice little sausagey shape. And then I just push everything back. And I soften everything. And this just gives me another chance to look at this image very carefully and do the second pass. So I'm now going in again. So I'm going to go and with a little bit more precision, okay, because I've relaxed into this drawing. And I'm going to start drawing a little bit more detail. And getting that eyelid in, looking at the shadow shapes. So she's got this like sort of almost like a rectangular shape above her nostrils. And getting that nostril in a little bit more carefully. I do love drawing from a phone instead of a reference image. Yeah, I mean, the zooming function is wonderful. I was going to draw from my iPad, and I ended up taking it to school today and leaving it at school when I came home. I was in such a rush to get out of school. Yeah, it's our first day back. And we had a big meeting this afternoon, and all I wanted to do was to get home. So I think I galloped out of that school and yeah, and left everything behind. Okay, I'm getting that second eye in. And this week is going to be crazy at school as well, because we've got parent-teacher meetings, and then the school's decided to give us a staff development on Friday as well. So it's yeah, a crazy busy week. And this morning I felt very sorry for the kids. I mean, they were all teenagers. And I think teenagers need a lot of sleep. So they've been catching up on their sleep in the holidays, and I think it was quite a strain for the kids to be at school. So I had these very lethargic teenagers in my classes today. So I did really feel sorry for them. So I've just exaggerated that mouth. There's a bit of a gap before the round part of the chin. So, I mean, that will be a lovely value that will come in. And sort of rounding that chin. I might have made that chin a little bit too generous. So I'm going to bring it in. So I'm just looking again at that shape of that face and trying to define it. I think I've got a tendency to make faces quite long, but I'm not worried about that either. It's okay. As long as she looks like a human, it's fine. And just indicating the shape of that eyebrow. And working it in. Okay, and there's quite a shadow around her eye as well. She's got like quite a bit of there's a strong shadow under her eye. So I'm just going to indicate that. I don't really want to make her look too. She's quite a young girl. I don't want to exaggerate that and make her look too old. I am just going to fill in that pupil, because in the final drawing, it's probably going to be dark. And if you want, you can just strengthen that. I'm not going to draw the individual eyelashes, but I quite like strengthening the top part of a lid, you know, sort of just exaggerating that line, because I can go in and that will be dark, and then I'll add the eyelashes later. And I'm just going to just put a few lines for that eyebrow, but again, I'll come back to it. Okay, and I'm now just looking. So there's another shape. So I must just remember that when I'm drawing or when I'm painting, that this area needs to be kept quite light when I start with that bush tea. And there's a little light area just underneath her lips. Okay, I think this chin is going to have to come up. Oh, okay, I've gone a little bit heavy-handed there. And that ear needs to come up a bit. Shoulder, I'm just double checking it is in the right spot. So I'm just going to indicate that. We could put in sort of a suggestion of her neck. But again, I'm not going to put too much detail in, because probably the flowers and a suggestion of, and I'm not going to put the hair in until I've got the flowers in. So I think I might just indicate her fringe, or the bangs. Americans refer to it. I'm not quite sure why they're called bangs, but anyway, it's a cute name. Okay, and I think from here is moving on to the flowers. So I'm just going to shift to the next slide, and it's got the flower images on it. And I collaged these in a app that's called Superimpose. Superimpose is a lovely app. I can actually show you on my phone. So let me just see where these images are. I'm not sure if I've done. Oh, there, I have done it. Okay, but Superimpose is quite amazing. So if you, and I think there's a free version of it. So if I go to, let me just, oops, okay. I'll look for it, superimpose. It's got like a little landscape with a little balloon. Okay, and it really is lovely. So what you can do is you can just go and add a background in. So I can, let me just choose any image. I'll just choose this image on my, and it's got that little face. Let me just see if I can make my screen brighter. So there's the little face. Then I'm going to choose a foreground image, and that's the apple. Okay, and that's going in. And then what I do is I just go to the masking tool, and I can delete the background. And then I can move that apple around. So if I want the apple overlapping her, I can go and I can go to the layers. You can actually see the apple is overlaying. That's what I wanted it to do on her. Let me just see if I can change these layers again. Yeah, and you can do all sorts of things like multiply it. Let me just take up the opacity. So it does very, very interesting things. Darken. So it's a lovely way of collaging very quickly and combining images, if you did want to do that. So it's a really nice little app, and it's very easy to use. I'm just going to close that down, and I'm going to go back to my image. So it's this one. And what I did is I combined more than one flower image of these quince flowers. Quince flowers, I didn't realize that quince fruit had such beautiful flowers, and seemingly they've got quite amazing symbolism as well. So they're lovely flowers in terms of their symbolism. I actually, again, can't remember it offhand, but they really do have beautiful symbolism. So I'm going to start drawing some of these flowers in. I've actually made this face very big, but it doesn't matter. So I'm going to start bringing in, and I will just start with the branches and start indicating those lines. And the flowers, I'm going to go very general first. So indicating the space of the flowers, almost like a sort of oval that's going to hold those flowers. And then there's another bunch of flowers that's going to come in near her eyes. And then there's another big clump that's going to go in lower down. Okay, and then there's another two, and I'm not going to stick exactly like my reference image. I've sort of adapted that. And then on the side, I'm going to do a similar thing. So I'm going to have quite a biggish shape. On the side, I'm going to draw those branches in as well, and also draw another circle and another circle at the bottom for those flowers, and then go in. And if you want to, if you find those circles distracting, you can soften them with your putty eraser, and then start drawing those flowers. And the flowers generally are, they have almost like this little cup shape. And then they've got the little, if you've seen them from the side, the petals that come off it. And then that attaches to the branch. So a very simple shape. So if you keep that in your head, you'll find it relatively easy to draw these flowers. So that cup shape, and this cup shape, if you look carefully, it's got like sort of little tiny little almost like petals attached to it. And then the real petal emerges out of that. So this particular one is from quite an unusual angle. So it's got a skinny petal, and then it's got like sort of a fatter one. And then it looks like there's another petal that slides in behind it. And then the second quince flower is going to pop in on the top. So I'm going to create that cup shape first, and then attach it to the branch. And then get those big red or pink petals in. Okay, I'm just going to move my reference image down. Okay, and I think that's the one done. So from that, I'm going to try and thicken this branch coming down to the next flower. It looks, I'm not going to put this, I think it's going to be weird if I put that little, so I'm just going to leave that little spike off. I'm just going to make a little nodule. This is what is so wonderful about art, is that you can have an interpretation of your reference images. It's not about, I think I'm going to open up a different image and look at it, because with my superimposing, I ended up doing bits of this has disappeared. So I'm going to go back to the original image, and I think I have provided it in the PDF for you. And then this image should be easier to work from. It looks like it's quite a big image. There it is. This one's a little bit difficult because it's got the leaves going over the top. But if we stick in our heads that structure of that flower, you can do the little cup shape again. And that cup shape, in this case, sort of comes down and then attaches to that branch. Oh, hang on, I'm doing weird things with this. Let me take, that's the side of her face. Okay, and then we're going to start drawing those petals in. So there's, you can actually, in these ones, you can see the inside of that flower. So it's got these like sort of little stamens and these little, with the little, I don't know what those things are called, like little stamens with like little spots on the top of them. And then you've got the leaves. I'm not going to draw the green leaves on. I think I'm just going to leave those off and just get those petals in. Do you know what? When you are adding organic elements, especially like flowers, to work, you can have a little bit of artistic license, because someone's not going to say, oh, you know, you haven't drawn that flower accurately. I mean, it's as long as it sort of looks like the flower, I think it's fine. So I've put the flower in there, and I'm going to move down to this. So this one is also, you're looking at the flower from the front, not really from the side. So I think I'm going to start with the basin of that flower. It's almost like that hollow that those stamens come out of. I'm also not putting too much detail into these flowers, because the ink might obliterate them, and we'll have to go back and redraw. You can go and clean up your work as you you work. So those initial circles, you might want to get rid of them. It's just started raining here. I can hear the rain outside. It's really lovely. We've had such hot weather, and it's really nice for the weather to be a little bit cooler than what it's been. We are also moving into our autumn. So yeah, really, really beautiful weather. We live in a very tropical climate, and it's incredibly hot. And I'm very grateful that today I'm sitting in my studio, and I'm not sweating. I'm not the sweat isn't pouring off my face. Yeah, I do have an air conditioner, but my air conditioner is not working properly, so I need to get that seen to. And it also makes a huge big noise. So in these lessons, it's not the ideal thing to have running while we are trying to peacefully draw. Okay, so that flower at the bottom, just suggesting it. And if you have more space, you could add more flowers in at the bottom. But I don't think we need to worry about that too much now. I think just a suggestion of those flowers, and we can come back to them once we put the tea and the ink into the artwork. Okay, and I'm going to move to the other side of the face. Hang on, maybe I need to put these ones on the side. Okay, I think I'm going to leave these two flowers on the side because I think they're going to move too much into her mouth. So I'm going to leave them, and I can always come back and add them in later. I'm also feeling that these two at the top are a little bit big. So I might make them smaller, but I'll leave that decision for a later time. Okay, I'm going to close that again, and I'm going to look at my other references. Yeah, these are quite nice along the side. So I'm going to start putting them in. And okay, getting that lovely big leaf. And this one's got a really beautiful wiggly edge to it. So getting that in, and then putting the bottom leaf. And this has also got a beautiful wiggly edge to it. And then this bottom petal is also a bit of a strange shape. And then we've got that cup shape that I was talking about earlier on the bottom. And then the second quince flower, I'm going to start with the I think in the it's in the Balkans, in areas like Greece, that they value the quince flower, and they see it as a sign of new beginnings and fertility and creativity, which is wonderful for us to make an artwork that is about something that's just beginning and being creative. Just softening some of those lines behind. And I think I'm going to make up a branch that's going to just lead out of my artwork. And there's one that goes behind. And I'm going to draw the last two flowers, and then we can start playing with the tea. The tea probably has brewed quite well by now, and it doesn't matter if it gets cold. That's perfectly fine. So just indicating those last flowers. And I think I might go back to my original reference for this last flower. So I'm just going to have a quick peep for it. Oh, there it is. Oh, yes, that's quite a beautiful flower. And yeah, I do love how it ends, you know, in that big spike. I might actually put something like that in and just adapt it. This one's a little bit more difficult to draw. I'm finding it a little bit difficult to see what's happening with those petals, but it's so it's got this ball shape, and then it's got a circular shape on that petal. I suppose this is the difference from drawing from images and drawing from life. From life, you could probably examine that flower a little bit more carefully. But I think once we draw into it and we get the inks going, it will resolve itself. Okay, and I think I'm going to stop at this stage and start playing with the inks. So, and the tea. Okay, so I'm going to move my phone out of the way, and let's start going with the tea. So let me just move this here. Okay, so what I would normally do with the tea is, so there's my brewed tea, is I would actually just dip a big brush into it, and this is quite light, and just splash it on. Okay, if you take the alcohol and you drip it, you'll see that the alcohol almost disperses the tea, and it makes this white mark. And once it dries, you'll see that you'll actually see, as the alcohol is seeping into the tea, it's moving that tea. So it's wonderful for highlights on a face. It can also be, so if you have a look at this piece here, it can make some strange marks. So if you look at this particular artwork, you'll see that I've put the alcohol here on the side of the face. So it's made a really, really interesting mark. It's made an interesting mark up there. So I would actually avoid putting it directly onto the face. It's worked here in this case, but it did some very odd things. So unless you're a person who can deal with that stuff, I think all this weird, funky alcohol stuff, I'd rather stick to the sides. That spot will probably dry and it will remain white. Okay, so what I would say is I would paint in the face. And so what we're going to do is we're going to drop in some light tea onto the face. And then we'll disperse it with so we'll almost try and puddle it, and then disperse it with the blower or a hairdryer. And then we can go in and we can mix up the slightly darker ink. Sharon, do you have, I'm just going to click onto you. Do you have ink or paint or something with you? Okay, that's perfect.
I have watercolors and I have my Inktense pencils, but I've
Okay,
also got this in red.
that's
It's
amazing. Okay,
it's ink.
so we can, okay, so we'll mix all of that, and then yeah, and we can play around with it. But I
Okay.
think, yeah, let's start with the face, and we'll get going. Okay, I'm just going to mute you again. There we go. And yeah, let's get going. Okay, so I'm going to go back to my image. And I'm going to start dropping. I have a one of these plastic pipettes as well that's also really amazing for dropping tea in. The only thing is it tends to go down quite liquid, and it could take a long time to dry. So I'm going to do it with my brush as well. So I'm just going to load some tea, and I'm when I do this, I sort of think, where would the darkest areas of her face be? So maybe around her eyes. Yeah, I'm just going to sort of dab it in. So I'm just dabbing it onto the surface, maybe the side of the face. I'm just leaving the plants for now because, okay, I'm going to maybe just put a little bit over this plant, because what I'll do is I'm going to then add the red ink in, and then we'll play with that. And under her neck as well, you're going to get a lovely area, so you can drop quite a lot of ink and sort of let it cool, so that you're not putting it in with very light strokes. You're going to go in there and and really sort of dab it in, so it's making like little pools of I don't know, pigment, I suppose, of tea. Okay, and I'm going to go under her eyes, because I think the face would be naturally quite dark there. Let's just check a little bit under the nose on the one side, and maybe under the chin, and I've darkened the lips. And now I'm going to take my little blower, and I'm going to start blowing stuff all over the place. Oh, you should have actually had some newspaper. Would be good if you want to grab some newspaper quickly. But yeah, I'm not really worried about the tea going onto my desk, and it shouldn't. I might just move that beautiful piece of paper and take my scrap one and put that underneath. Oh, and this is already making beautiful edges on the. So now all I'm going to do is I'm going to move this. And like I said, if you haven't got one of these, you can use a straw and you can spread it. But this is going to make really beautiful marks. Across that face. And because it's fairly light and we haven't added any pigment into it, it is going to be quite subtle. You're into working with alcohol inks. This little tool is invaluable. It's sort of it saves you from. I used to get lightheaded when I was blowing through a straw, but this is really a wonderful tool. Okay, so once it's got to that stage, I'm going to start mixing up the darker inks and start applying them to the flowers and around that face. But this is really quite beautiful. I'm quite enjoying it right now. So I'm going to move that slightly to the side. And I'm going to show you how the ink mixes with the tea. So I've got a little bit of rooibos or red bush tea, and I'm going to take this ink, and this ink is really intense and really beautiful. So if I dip my brush in there, you'll see it's almost like it's a blood red color. It's a wonderful color. So I'm going to just take because it's so intense, and I'm just going to add it in there. There's two ways you could do it. You could, I could actually take this ink. I'm just going to see how strong it is. And I could start adding little bits, into, and gently just sort of dab it in, and it's going to have a slightly different effect. And it will probably be more intense than, but I've already started putting it into this original tea. So it just starts seeping into that area. Or you can do what we've done, and you can take a brush and you can dab it in and blow it, which is what we are going to do. So that is the ink. So let me just show you the difference. I'll do all of it on this artwork. In fact, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to be stupid. Sorry, I do crazy things. So you'll see it's a little bit more intense than the normal tea. Okay, and then that can be blown as well with your blower. It's running into that tea, and you can just see the ink is just making it a little bit intense. And obviously you can control the intensity of that pigment by adding more ink. So we know that ink works really beautifully. Okay, and then this ink also reacts to the, it should react, no, it's not. Obviously the tea is reacting to the alcohol. That might make a strange mark, or it might need to be more liquid when I put it down. So maybe, I'm not going to do it now. Okay, so I've made the tea with the ink. I'm going to put a little bit of tea into this next container just to show you all the differences. And I'm going to, so there's my tea, the original tea that I brewed. And I'm going to try and put a little bit of watercolor in there. So here's my watercolor set. And, oh, no, I've just done something crazy. I went and put the original paintbrush instead of cleaning it. Okay. Okay, I haven't put too much pigment in there. So I'm going to take oh, I'm doing crazy things. This is the dirty brush. This is when you don't do what the teacher tells you to do. You do your own thing. Okay, I'm going to start that again and not be crazy. Okay, so there is the clean. And I'm just transferring tea into that, a little bit of tea, not too much. And I'm going to work with a clean brush. Okay, so I'm going to grab my brush kit, and I'm not going to pick up a dirty brush. Normally, if I did that in my own time, I wouldn't bother about it. I would actually just go with it. But yeah, I mean, we're looking for a specific result, so it's not appropriate. Okay, and so I've just dipped my brush into water, and I've pre-wet these, so they should still be wet. And I'm just picking up some of that pigment. And I said this pigment is really strong, and you can see. And now, when I dipped, in fact, I think I've added too much in there. So normally I wouldn't do that. I would actually add more tea. That I didn't realize how strong this pigment is, but it's going to give us a slightly different effect. So if I put that on, I'm going to put it somewhere else so that we can see. I'll put it on this flower at the top. Just dab it in there so that we can see the difference. It'd be quite interesting to see if it's very different from the ink. The ink sort of it has a different feel. And then I'm going to spray that about. I've got too many toys out. So I'm going to spray that. Spray it, blow it at least. And I'm just going to add more pigment into the middle. Okay, so that is with the watercolor. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to toss this one that I made the oops in. Is this? No, this is not the oops one. Okay, so I've got this one that's gone very brown. I mean, it probably is quite cool because it got a bit of black. That could be quite a nice ink, but I'm not going to touch it. I'm going to empty it into a water container. Okay, and then this little jar is clean again. I'm going to empty some of the tea in there, and we're going to put some of the acrylic into it. So just red acrylic. So there's the tea. And I've got just a really cheap student brand acrylic. And I'm going to squeeze a little bit of that onto my brush. Oops, okay, just a little bit. And the acrylic is quite weird because it sort of separates. It might just be this brand of acrylic, but it does sort of separate almost into little particles. I might actually have to take a big brush and just sort of mush it and flatten it. And that acrylic doesn't look like it's had much effect on this. I'm just going to put a little bit more in. But the point I'm trying to make is that you can alter your tea. You don't have to go out and buy expensive inks. You can use your acrylics, or you can use your watercolors, and each one of them will have a different effect. This looks almost like it's a slightly more tan color rather than the red. I might actually put a lot more acrylic into that tea. And I can see that there's little particles that aren't completely dissolving, which is quite fun. I mean, it's just giving me, oh, that might be quite beautiful the way it's spilled in there. Okay, so I'm going to remove all of this, and I think I'm going to go with the inky tea, and I'm going to alter my artwork. So I'm going to move this piece that's very wet and pop it on the floor, and I'm just going to get a little bit more organized. Okay, so let's get this piece up here again. I don't mind that. If you were disturbed by that being and starting to pull so dramatically, so for example, I might not want a very dark mark in the middle there, or I might not want a dark mark on her face. So you could take a little bit of kitchen towel, and just like watercolor, if that's too strong, I can just go in and I can just suck it up and make sure that it's light. Okay, so you can do a little bit of a cheat. You don't have to accept what's happened. And you can go in with your kitchen towel and you can lighten areas, and it's going to be a lot more subtle. Okay, so I'm going to remove all the stuff, and I'm going to go with my okay, so I'm going to put the ink back, which is this. It just looks a lot more rich. And I'm going to rinse my brushes thoroughly because I've done all sorts of weird stuff with my brushes. And I'm going to start working the ink in the tea. And in fact, I'm going to just pick up more of the ink. I'm going to move this aside so you can see what I'm doing. So there's my bottle of ink. There's my tea. And I'm just going to touch, or maybe that's a little bit too dramatic. Okay, that is crazy dramatic. I have a tendency to be a little bit heavy-handed in my work, but it's okay. You know what, I have this thing, if I'm too controlled, in the end, I often don't like the work. I almost like it when I've got a battle and work at something to get it to work. So I mean, when I make mistakes, it's okay. I mean, each artwork I make, I mean, what I love about this technique is every single piece is going to look completely different because you can't actually control it. And that is what is so wonderful about making an artwork like this. Yeah, I'm just dipping my brush into water because I don't want to pollute my ink. I suppose I should have decanted the ink into, and I'm just going to dab the ink into areas, in some areas, especially on those blooms. I think those blooms can be quite intense. Going back into the tea. And, you know, what works for me might not work for you, or you might be playing around with your acrylics. They could be a completely different brand, and they might be phenomenal. So in the end, you need to experiment and look at your work and see what effects you like. Yeah. You know, I think one of the wonderful things about making art is this sense of play and going back. I mean, yeah, I was speaking to a child today. It was actually quite, well, yeah, it was sad because she was very upset because she had planned her artwork, and she wanted to get a particular effect. And yes, she did rush through her work, but it didn't work out. And I said to her, you know what? One of the horrible things about art is that it's not, there's no formula. You can't do it like maths. You can't go 1 + 1 and you're going to get 2 all the time. You know, you could follow a particular route and you could end up making a horrible artwork. But then you also, the reverse of that is you get these happy accidents that you haven't anticipated, and your work just looks absolutely incredible. So yeah, you've got to take the good with the bad. And just let it happen. And you know, I mean, the worst that could happen is you start again. You know, I mean, so if this one's not successful, we just try again. And I'm really, really enjoying what's happening around the lips over here. It's really, really beautiful. And I mean, I could never have drawn that. So I'm just popping more pigment in. Okay, and I'm going to try and spray a lot of this around. Without wrecking my clothing. I should have worn an apron. Yeah, I dress in I never wear plain clothing. I always wear multicolored clothing because it's often too hot to wear aprons when I'm at school. So I wear clothes that's multi-patterned, multicolored. Just because I know that if I wear dark colors, some kid will put a light color on me, or I'll end up spilling light paint on my dark clothing. And then the reverse, if I wear, oh, look at these wonderful little lines that are creeping across that artwork. Yeah, if I wear very light clothing, I'll end up with dark paint on myself. So I really have just given up on wearing plain clothing. But I am naughty. I definitely should have put an apron on today. I'm just adding more pigment on the side as well, because I mean, I do want white spaces to remain, but I'm not actually quite sure what I'm going to do in this corner. So I'm just going to put a little bit of ink down there, just to counterbalance, because this is starting to, I think this is starting to get quite heavy. And then this side is quite empty. So I just wanted to put a little bit more ink on that side. In fact, I'm going to turn my work. And I think I'm going to blot up the spills on this side, so we don't end up with red ink everywhere. And I'm going to try and blur it in that direction. And I think the blooms on this side are quite pale as well. So I'd like to add, and in the areas where they would be quite deep, I think I'm going to cheat a little bit, and I'm going to work that ink into the little hollows of these blooms, so that they get just a little bit more. So I'm just going to dab into the hollows of these blooms so that we have a little bit more intense ink. In that area, it'll just sort of save a little bit of hard work with the colored pencil. And I think in this one as well, I'd like to make that one a little bit darker. This is doing some interesting things, and it's moving across that eye, which is quite interesting. I just don't know if I want it that dark. But I think this one definitely has to get a little bit darker. So I'm going to work into that one. One at the bottom. And I think I'm going to give one more last scoot of this blower thing. Actually, these almost look like little stamens coming out of the flower, which is quite beautiful. And I think what I'm going to do is leave this now, and then this hopefully will dry beautifully.